Her lipstick was smudged. That's the first thing I noticed. Not the fact that she was holding another man's hand in the middle of a crowded rooftop. Not the way her dress was wrinkled near the shoulder like someone had gripped it. Not the empty champagne glass dangling from her fingers like it had betrayed her. No, her lipstick. Red. Smeared across her mouth like a secret she didn't bother cleaning up. And then she saw me. I didn't make a scene. I didn't scream or throw a drink or punch the guy. I just stood there, blinking like an idiot, trying to decide if this was real or just one of those nightmares where your body won't move fast enough. The man, whoever he was, didn't even flinch. He kept his hand locked with hers, like I was some awkward intern who'd stumbled into the wrong conversation. Like I was the intruder. She leaned into him and whispered something, then let go of his hand, walked straight toward me, heels clicking like clock hands counting down to something I didn't want to know. And when she reached me, she didn't apologize. She didn't explain. She leaned in close, so close I could smell his cologne on her, and said, "Now you know what it feels like." I didn't even ask what she meant, because I knew, or at least I thought I did. But what unraveled over the next 24 hours proved I didn't know anything at all. And this wasn't revenge. It was something far worse. She turned back toward the man, like I wasn't even worth a second glance. As if what she said, "Now you know what it feels like," was enough explanation. As if I deserved to see it. And the worst part? For one split second, I believed her. My mind started flipping through every memory like a desperate intern digging for a missing report. What did she mean? What had I done? Had I? No, I wasn't that guy. I didn't cheat. I didn't flirt. I barely had a social life outside of her. My sins were quieter, smaller, working too much, zoning out when she talked, forgetting anniversaries. But this wasn't proportionate. This wasn't even the same planet. I followed her. She disappeared down a hallway that led to the indoor lounge. No one else noticed anything weird, just two people walking in opposite directions. I caught up to her near the bar, where the light was dimmer and the music softer, replaced by the low murmur of hushed conversations and bad decisions. "You want to tell me what that was?" I asked, barely keeping my voice steady. She didn't answer right away. She took a sip from a glass I hadn't seen her order. She looked tired, drained, like she hadn't slept in weeks. Like whatever she'd been carrying had finally tipped over and spilled out in front of me. "You lied to me 3 months ago," she said, "and I needed to see your face when I did the same." I blinked. "What are you talking about? What lie?" She laughed, dry and hollow, like she'd already played this scene out in her head 100 times and none of them ended well. "Don't do that. Don't play innocent. You know exactly what I mean." But I didn't. I genuinely didn't. My mouth opened to protest, to ask again, but she cut me off. "Let me ask you something, Theo. When you stayed at that conference in Charlotte, how long did you and Kara actually work that night?" The air snapped out of the room. Kara, from marketing. Brilliant, sarcastic, wears oversized glasses like armor. "We worked late. Once. Maybe twice. But nothing happened. I swore to myself nothing happened. Except, maybe I smiled too much when she texted. Maybe I liked the attention more than I should have. Maybe I told a joke that sounded too personal, and maybe, just maybe, Lena had seen one of those messages and decided it was proof. "You're wrong," I whispered, the words burning in my throat. "I didn't cheat." She stepped closer. "But you thought about it." I wanted to argue, scream, shake her, and tell her this wasn't the same. That kissing some smug stranger in front of me wasn't the same as a few innocent text messages that never went anywhere. But I didn't, because I did think about it. And now, someone else had thought about her the same way, and followed through. The thing about guilt is, it doesn't wait for facts. It moves in fast, settles in your lungs, and makes you forget how to breathe. That's what it felt like as she stood there, daring me to admit something that never actually happened. But she didn't care about truth. She cared about balance. And in her mind, this, whatever that kiss was balance. "You wanted her," she said flatly, like she was reading a grocery list. "You didn't touch her, but you wanted to." And I felt that. Every night. I leaned against the wall, dizzy, like my body didn't know what to do with itself. I wasn't the villain here. I wasn't perfect, but I hadn't crossed the line. Not really. I looked at Lena, my wife, and realized something terrifying. She'd already decided what version of me she believed. It didn't matter what I said. "Okay," I finally muttered. "Let's say I wanted her. Just wanted. No acting on it. How does that justify this? What I saw out there? She looked at me, eyes glassy now. Because you made me feel invisible for months. Like I was just background noise in your routine. So when someone actually saw me again, really saw me, I stopped caring if it was right or wrong. She wasn't shouting. She wasn't crying. She was calm. That's what wrecked me the most. This wasn't some impulsive mistake. This was deliberate, cold, measured, premeditated emotional punishment. I didn't kiss him because I love him, she said. I kissed him because I needed you to hurt. That sentence alone could have split concrete. I don't remember leaving the lounge. I don't remember getting in the car. But I remember the silence. She didn't say a word during the drive home. Not when I parked. Not when we stepped inside. I followed her upstairs like a ghost, waiting for her to say more. Something, anything. But she just took off her earrings, placed them on her nightstand, and slid under the covers like it was any other Tuesday. I stood at the foot of the bed for a long time, watching her close her eyes. And that's when something else hit me. I wasn't angry. I was terrified. Because if she could do something like this and still sleep peacefully beside me, then maybe I didn't know who I married at all. And I wasn't sure I ever really had. I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the carpet with my back against the dresser, knees pulled to my chest like I was 10 years old again. The room was dark except for the glow of her phone screen on the nightstand. It lit up once. Then again. Different names. I didn't recognize them. I didn't touch it. I just watched her breathe. Deep, steady, peaceful. How could she be at peace? After that, was I really that forgettable? That replaceable? Did I miss so many small things that this was the only way she could reach me? Around 3:17 a.m., I finally whispered, "Who is he?" I didn't expect an answer, but her eyes opened, and she said, without even turning to face me, "You wouldn't know him." That wasn't true. I knew. I knew it was that guy from the party, the one in the navy jacket, the smug posture, the casual touch on her lower back like he had the right. But I didn't push it. I was too afraid of what else she might say. Instead, I stared at the shadows on the ceiling, letting my brain rewrite history in loops. Maybe it wasn't a kiss. Maybe it wasn't her. Maybe I never saw it at all. But I did. By morning, she was already downstairs making coffee like we hadn't just detonated our marriage 6 hours earlier. She wore one of my old t-shirts, her hair still pinned from the party. She looked normal. I hovered in the hallway like some awkward stranger in his own home, unsure if I was allowed in the kitchen. She didn't look up when I walked in. "I'm not going to see him again," she said, pouring 2 mugs. "It's done." I blinked. That's it. That's it. A strange silence settled between us. Not forgiveness, not even anger. Just this gray, airless fog. I didn't know what game we were playing, but it felt like she'd memorized the rules, and I didn't even know the board existed. "So what now?" I asked. She sipped her coffee, finally meeting my eyes. "Now we see if there's anything left worth saving." Just like that. As if I had been the one who needed to prove himself. As if her act of revenge had been some noble wake-up call, and now I was supposed to scramble and rebuild the bridge she blew up on purpose. And the sickest part? Some broken part of me still wanted to try. But deep inside, I knew something had shifted. Something I wouldn't be able to unfeel. Something I couldn't name yet. But it was big, and it was waiting. And it wasn't done with us. We didn't talk about the party after that morning. Not once. Not directly. She went back to work like nothing had happened. I went through the motions like I wasn't rotting from the inside out. The first few days after were the strangest. She was warmer. Kinder. She touched my arm when she passed me, brought home takeout from my favorite place, laughed at my jokes like she used to. It was like she was trying to resuscitate something with CPR made of small, familiar gestures. But it didn't feel like love. It felt like strategy. And I became a version of myself I didn't recognize. Hyper-aware. Jumping at every notification sound. Watching her fingers when she typed. Trying to memorize her patterns. I started checking when she came home. I counted the minutes. I hated myself for it. I never asked again about the man from the party. I was too afraid she'd give me a name I couldn't forget. One night, maybe a week later, I went downstairs after she'd fallen asleep. Not for anything suspicious. I just needed air. I poured a glass of water, stood at the sink staring into the darkness, wondering when I had become the kind of man who waited for someone to love him again. That's when I noticed her work bag. She always brought it upstairs. Always. Even if she wasn't working, it came to the bedroom. I don't know why it caught my eye that night. Maybe because it looked wrong somehow, slumped on the floor like it had been dropped in a hurry. I didn't mean to look inside. I told myself I wouldn't. I even turned away. But then I turned back, slowly, like something else had taken the wheel. Inside was her laptop, some receipts, a set of printed meeting notes, and then a second phone. It was slim, new, no case, no lock screen, just lying there, face down, as if daring me to flip it over. My hand shook as I picked it up. It buzzed the second I turned it on. A message preview lit up the screen. No name, just a number. Tell him whatever you need to. He'll believe anything now. My legs gave out. I sat right there on the kitchen floor, phone in my lap, the glow of the message like a siren in my skull. This wasn't over. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't even revenge anymore. It was a game, and she was playing it with rules I'd never agreed to. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't confront her the next morning, either. I just watched her pour coffee into the mug with my name on it, kiss me on the cheek, and head off to work like the perfect wife. But now I knew. She hadn't stopped. She'd just gotten better at hiding it. And for the first time, I didn't feel broken. I felt dangerous. Most people, when they find out their spouse is cheating, explode. They throw things. Yell. Leave. I did none of that. Instead, I started watching her like a stranger. Like she was a puzzle with missing pieces, and I'd finally been given the edge of the frame. Lena had always been composed, strategic, too smart to slip. But once you knew what to look for, the slight flinch when her phone buzzed, the pause before answering certain questions, the way she touched me less, but smiled more, you couldn't unsee it. It was all theater. Every kiss, every laugh, every "how was your day?" A carefully rehearsed act. So I gave her what she wanted. I played the loyal husband. I asked about her meetings. I made her dinner. I smiled when she came home late. I pretended I didn't see her eyes dart to the burner phone she thought I didn't know about. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done in years. But this time, it wasn't to vent. It was to document. Every lie, every timeline, every inconsistency. Names, dates, locations. I didn't know what I was building, exactly a case, a map, a weapon, but it gave me purpose, gave me back the tiniest thread of control. One evening, I saw her standing in the backyard, phone pressed to her ear. She was barefoot, wine glass in one hand, eyes scanning the dark as if the night sky had answers. I watched from the upstairs window. Her mouth moved fast. Too fast. Her other phone was inside. She hadn't realized it had synced to our shared cloud the last time she connected to our Wi-Fi. Rookie mistake. She didn't notice me watching. That's when I knew she didn't see me as a threat anymore. She thought she had me emotionally declawed, neutered, safe. And maybe she was right. Until the next day. Because the next morning, I called out sick from work. Not because I was ill, but because I had a meeting of my own. With someone she never expected. I drove across town to a quiet cafe I remembered her mentioning once. A place she said she hated. Too cold, she'd called it. Like a waiting room with better lighting. But when I stepped inside, I saw him. The man from the party. He didn't recognize me at first. Why would he? I'd been background noise that night. The pathetic husband with a drink in his hand and heartbreak on his face. So I introduced myself. Calm. Polite. Firm handshake. His name wasn't what I thought it was. And what he told me over that next hour shattered everything Lena had led me to believe. She hadn't just manipulated me. She'd manipulated him, too. His name was Jasper. Not Brandon. Not Ian. Not whatever placeholder I had in my head since that night on the rooftop. Just Jasper. Soft-spoken. Nervous. The kind of guy who apologized twice before even sitting down across from me. I didn't hate him. I wanted to. But he looked tricked. Like I used to. I told him my name. He flinched a little when I said Lena was my wife. Then he laughed. This bitter, confused kind of laugh that makes your stomach turn. He looked around the cafe like he didn't want to believe the conversation was real. I thought she was divorced, he said quietly. She told me you were her ex. That the marriage had been over for a year. I stared at him. She told me it was just a kiss. He looked genuinely horrified. We've been seeing each other for 4 months. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. For months. That meant she started this long before the conference. Before the imaginary lie she punished me for. This wasn't retaliation. This was premeditated. Choreographed. Scripted. I asked questions I never thought I'd ask another man about my wife. Where they met. What she said about me. Where they went. How often. Did she ever say she loved him? No. She never did. And that was worse, somehow. because it meant he wasn't a replacement. He was a distraction. She made me feel like I saved her, he said, eyes on the table. She said she felt trapped, like she'd been living someone else's life. She cried when she talked about you. I didn't respond. My throat was dry. My hands were cold. She's not who I thought she was, he whispered. I nodded. Me neither. When I left the cafe, the wind hit me harder than I expected. It felt like I'd just crawled out of some dark tunnel, and the world was louder than it should be. I sat in the car for a long time, gripping the steering wheel, watching people pass by like they were in some alternate universe where spouses didn't sleep beside you while texting someone else goodnight. That evening, I didn't say a word to her. She came home late, again, smelling faintly like a hotel lobby. Not perfume, not sweat, just that sterile, too clean scent that clings to elevators and double doors and secrets. She asked how my day was. I said fine. She kissed me on the cheek, and I let her. But the whole time, I knew. And now I had something she didn't. A timeline. A second phone. A witness. And her mistake? She thought she was in control. But I was done being the soft one. And the next move? Was mine. I didn't scream. I didn't expose her. I didn't go full scorched earth, though God knows I wanted to. For weeks I fantasized about it, forwarding the text to her boss, showing the second phone to her parents, leaving a manila envelope on every desk at her office. But I didn't, because the most powerful thing I could do was walk away with everything she thought she'd broken still intact. So I planned. Carefully. Quietly. I made copies of every message. Screenshots. Audio recordings of her late-night phone calls I captured from the synced cloud account she forgot existed. I compiled it all, labeled it, sealed it in an encrypted drive. Not to use, but to have. My safety net. Then I met with a lawyer. A good one. I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity. And a clean break. It took 3 weeks to set everything in motion. During those weeks, I played my part to perfection. The soft-spoken husband. The slightly distant but still doting man she assumed was too weak to leave. She never saw it coming. The night I told her, she had just come back from an off-site. Hair curled, heels in hand. She walked into the kitchen, complaining about traffic. I handed her the envelope. Her smile faded the second she touched it. I'm not angry, I said calmly. I'm done. She opened it. Saw the documents. The backup drive. The notarized letter. Everything. I watched her throat tighten. Her eyes flicker in disbelief. She reached for words, for control, but found neither. You were right, I said. You did make me feel invisible. But not anymore. She asked me to stay. Said we could work on it. That she didn't know what she wanted until now. That it didn't mean anything. But her timing was perfect, just a little too late. I moved out that night. Didn't slam the door. Didn't take the bait when she cried. I left with a single duffel bag and a heart that, for the first time in years, felt light. I rented a tiny apartment on the quiet side of town. Started cooking for myself. Jogging again. I signed up for an art class. Nothing fancy, just sketching on Saturdays with strangers who didn't know my story. It's been 3 months now. And I'm not broken. I'm rebuilding. The betrayal doesn't define me anymore. It sharpened me. Cleared the fog I'd been living in. I'm not the man I was when this started. Desperate. Unsure. Begging to be seen. Now I see myself. And I like who's finally looking back.